Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today for a webinar. Good morning to some of you on the West Coast, perhaps, and good afternoon to those like me on the East Coast, and anyone joining us somewhere outside of that, perhaps outside of the U.S. Thank you so much for making this part of your day. As you know, my name is Stephanie Butler, and I'm an Assistant Director of Admissions at the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth. We are here in Hanover, New Hampshire, part of the Northeast. We've recently gotten some snow, and so we are happy to be cozy and warm and dry inside. But today we are talking specifically about the questions that you should be asking yourself. And I'm assuming that if this webinar appealed to you, you are likely on the earlier side of the application process. So these are questions that I would encourage you to ask immediately. And then as you sort of work through the process and as you learn more about yourself and about the programs and schools and all of the above, continue asking yourself these questions, making sure you can kind of use them as a roadmap, I suppose, as you move through this process, which can certainly be challenging at times. So hopefully this will provide a little bit of guidance going forward. I should also mention that after I will chat with you about some questions that you should ask yourself and some other suggestions as you move forward, and then we'll save a good chunk of the time this afternoon for your questions. So do send in questions. I'd love to hear from you. Would love to help address anything that might be on your mind. All right, so first and foremost, introspection. This is something that you will hear continuously as you talk to people who have gone through the MBA admissions process, admissions officers. This is something that we feel very strongly about, both impacting your application in a compelling way and also for you personally to hit the ground running at an MBA program. So first, think broadly. By the time you hit submit on that application, you should really know and be able to articulate clearly why you want an MBA. So before you think about an MBA at all, and you maybe have already done this, make sure you have a pretty good understanding of your short and long-term career goals. So start big, think about things that you enjoy doing, maybe some things that you do not enjoy doing. Do you like the industry you're currently in? Is the function that you're performing at work something that you're still excited about and you'd like to perhaps pursue after an MBA? Is an MBA necessary to grow within your industry? Sometimes it's not about changing what you're doing or making a career switch, but sometimes it's about career acceleration and growth. So what exactly are those goals? And then it seems quite basic, but really learn about what an MBA is. So take some time to understand what you will learn sort of academically in an MBA program, and also what kind of opportunities will be available to you as a graduate, particularly of a top 10 MBA program like Tuck. So once you understand your goals in your MBA, or what an MBA is, I would suggest going a little bit deeper even, understanding how the MBA will help you specifically reach those goals. So being able to completely connect the dots between the MBA program and your short-term goals, your long-term goals, is going to be incredibly beneficial in the long run. Go even deeper. Look at what companies are currently doing what you're interested in. Is there anyone that you can perhaps talk to within that industry? Who has your sort of dream job? One, do they have an MBA or do they feel that an MBA would be valuable? And secondly, talk to them about the work itself. Is that something, once you have those discussions, again, that will either further strengthen your goals or perhaps lead you in a different direction? Once you've talked to people, you could even take it a step further. Sometimes people have avenues where they're able to test the waters a little bit. Perhaps it's a volunteer opportunity, perhaps it's some freelancing, maybe it's just a job shadow experience. So can you get some sort of experience in the goals that you're looking to pursue, just to confirm that that really is the way to go. An MBA and any sort of graduate program is a big investment. So make sure that you're able to make the most of it by going in, having done some research. So I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier. There are two really excellent reasons to do this introspection. One is for you personally. Once you enter an MBA program, you really are going to hit the ground running and be, just inundated with tons of opportunities. Not only will you be going to class, you'll be meeting new people, you'll be meeting with companies, you'll be exploring different careers, you'll be participating in clubs. And so coming in with a solid sense of what you want to do, even if you do some exploration, which is highly encouraged, you'll still have kind of that true north for you and have some sort of sense of what you want to do after this, the reason that you're here. It's very easy to get caught up in what's going on with all of your classmates. And secondly, during the application process itself, this will be incredibly advantageous, this introspection. Inevitably, it will be much easier to tell your story through the essays, to tell your story verbally in an interview if you really have it down, if you understand it in and out. And the more you learn about it, the more passion and the more enthusiasm and the more authentically you'll be able to talk about it. So again, highly advantageous to do some digging prior to the application itself. And then I guess the last thing I would note around your goals is if they do seem part of articulating your goals is the ability for kind of the outside person reading your application to be able to understand why it is that you want to pursue that. So sometimes goals are very sort of logical and linear and kind of just a natural progression from things you've already been doing. If it does seem a bit, kind of trying to look objectively at your career path thus far and where you want to go, if it seems like it's a little bit out in left field, do be able to share exactly what led you to those goals. What we don't want is you to just sort of tell us what you think we want to hear or jump on the bandwagon. So be able to tell us exactly why it is those goals are what you're interested in. All right. So secondly, once you know yourself very well, I would encourage you to get to know programs that you might be interested in. And I would start with a very open mind. Different programs are better fits for different people, for personal and for professional reasons. Don't just assume because of where a program is ranked that it's automatically going to be the best program for you. You owe it to yourself to get to know programs on a deeper level prior to making any large decisions. Think about the questions that I'd ask you to consider for this slide. How will a particular school help you accomplish your goals? What school is the best fit for you on a personal level? Where do you see yourself being able to stretch and grow and contribute and just simply enjoy yourself? And who are the students and alums you would most like to work alongside and call part of your network? So there are a ton of resources that will help you do this. The website is kind of the obvious one, and there's a plethora of information on schools' websites. Tuck in particular, I think, is excellent. So dig further, go beyond the homepage because there's so much more there. Again, some schools might look similar from the outside. We might say similar, might have similar mantras or talk in broad terms about similar programs, but there's so much differentiation. So please do take the time to explore. Dig into the website, look, for various things. Keep clicking through levels of the website. Look at the clubs, look at various, Tuck has several centers and initiatives that focus on various industries. Look at the blog. Tuck 360 blog is a great resource for that first-hand student perspective. So there's also a number of opportunities to learn about the school and also get to know people who make up this community. Sometimes online events. Sometimes it is an in-person event. We have a strong ambassador program, and they're always anxious to host small events when they're off campus. So we do host events around the world, whether it's student-hosted or admissions office-hosted. And then, so attend events, talk to people through your personal network, through LinkedIn, through work. And finally, I would highly encourage you to visit as many programs as you can. Tuck, for example, has a really generous interview program. We want to get to know everyone as much as we can, and so we offer you the opportunity to initiate an interview on campus. But not only do you get to interview, but also it gives you an opportunity to sit in on a class, to talk to current students, to have lunch, to tour campus, and to speak with an admissions officer. So it really is beneficial to come and get a feel for the school. It's really hard to assume that you understand what makes the school special without having had these conversations with people, whether that's in your hometown if you're not able to visit here in Hanover, online, on the phone, or if you are able to visit and talk to students, then that's wonderful too. Third, I would ask you to consider whether your academic profile is competitive. And I want to note here, and I really want to underscore the fact that we know there's so much more to you than that. There are a number of characteristics that we look at when we evaluate applications. We do post them on the website, and so please, familiarize yourself with those prior to compiling your application, both so you can, create a more compelling application, but also just so you have a sense of how we are looking at your hard work and your experiences and your background. But academic profile is certainly an important part of that. We want to make sure that you're able to handle a really rigorous curriculum once you get to Tuck, particularly during the first year when it is quite quantitative, especially. So do understand where you sort of line up as far as test scores and undergraduate GPA. For example, Tuck's current first-year class, our average GPA is 722 with a range of 620 through 780. And a average GPA of 3.5. So as you can see by looking at the range, you can certainly be admitted on other strengths outside of your GMAT score. Do you need a 722 to be admitted? No. That said, if you find yourself well below that, it will be a hurdle. If you have the opportunity to increase that score, if that is something you find yourself capable of, it certainly will make your application that much stronger. So that said, I'd encourage you, again, if you're on the earlier side of this application process, to consider taking the test. whether that's the GMAT or the GRE, which is perfectly acceptable as well. There's no disadvantage to taking the GRE. And apologies, we simply do not report the GRE average quite yet, as it's still such a small minority of the scores that we receive. Take it sooner rather than later. Don't rush it, of course, but give yourself time to worry about, or focus on, rather, I should say, other pieces of the application when the time to submit gets closer, without the anxiety of having to take the GMAT or the GRE as well. This also gives you the opportunity, if you're taking it early, if you have a score, if you end up with a score that you're not happy with, or perhaps is quite a bit lower than the practice scores that you were receiving, there's time to retake if that is within your means, and if you find that is an option for you personally. So give yourself some time so you're not stressed out later or hindered by it in the long run. Let's see. Finances. Again, another sort of big picture question that you want to ask yourself: how will I finance my MBA? This is another thing like the GMAT that you don't want to assume that you're going to get a scholarship and then don't, and then find yourself in a tough spot having to make a really big choice, not based on your fit for a program or the opportunities it might provide, but simply based on finances. And we do understand that is a strong consideration. And like I said earlier, this is a huge investment. So we get it, but we're simply, not able to offer everyone a scholarship. So don't assume that you will receive one. If you do, that's awesome. That's just icing on the cake, but you'll be a lot more prepared and less stressed if you've made a plan to finance the MBA in other ways. We often suggest people pay down other debt, look for funding options elsewhere, and save what you can, so that way you feel more confident going forward. Also rely on, call the financial aid office once you're admitted. Make sure you're tapping into everything that you're able to, but don't be afraid to think about finances, about the price tag, even before you receive that offer. And finally, timing. So when am I going to apply? Often people ask if it really matters if they apply in a later round. And truthfully, yes, it does. Yes, ultimately, you will be better off applying with a stronger application as opposed to a rushed one, just so you can apply in an earlier round. But when all things equal, if you are able to apply earlier, please do it. Simply, from a statistical point of view, we have fewer seats left in the class once you get into later rounds. So it does become increasingly competitive. So if you are thinking about applying for an MBA now, if you're thinking about applying in the fall or the winter for the class of 2021, you have plenty of time to put together a really compelling application prior to the first deadline. So absolutely aim for that. If you are unable to meet it, then there are other options, and you can certainly apply later, and there's certainly lots of people who are admitted in later rounds, but if possible, I would suggest at this point aiming for an earlier round rather than a later one. All right, well, those are kind of the questions that I would encourage you to ask. And my final note here is we're just really excited to meet you. I know it's incredibly stressful to go through this process, and there's so many components that you're considering, and so competitive, but we are excited to meet you. We are always, wanting to make decisions in favor of the applicant. Of course, we can't always do that, but we look to admit we want to have you here. We're excited to meet you. So enjoy this introspective process as much as you can, and get as much as you can out of this application process along the way. So I am going to take a quick second to read some of your questions, and I'm happy to get to some of those. In the meantime, while I'm looking through some of those, I'm going to launch a quick poll. If you wouldn't mind taking that. All right. All right. Well, I'm thrilled to see that the large majority of you do plan on applying to Tuck. So very excited to get to know you a little bit better as the months progress. Don't hesitate to stay in touch. Diving into some of your questions, someone says, would your earlier commentary change in any way for sponsored students who are returning to their current employer? So obviously, the path I talked about sort of how well your goals align with your previous experience, and you wanting that to make sense to an external reader. And so, of course, that will make perfect sense. That said, do take the time to articulate why you want to return to your current company and how you want to grow within that organization. So even though it's it seems like a very straightforward career path, we'd love to know a little bit about how you want to grow within that organization. Your long-term goals might differ. Your short-term might be to return to the sponsored company, but your long-term goals might differ in some way. And then you can also use, typically we have asked about your goals within the same question, that we want to know why it is you're pursuing an MBA and why it is you are interested in attending Tuck. So yeah, I mean, saying that you're interested in an MBA because your employer is going to pay for it is not going to be very compelling to the reader. And we want people who are excited about the MBA and who will really make the most of it. So still take the time to get to know how, what sort of courses, what sort of clubs, what sort of tracks, what sort of experiential opportunities are going to help you progress within that organization. And then, similarly, what it is exactly about Tuck specifically that makes you, is appealing to get your MBA. All right, great question. It says, if your GPA is lower than the average GPA of an applicant, can I use a graduate level courses to show growth in academic ability? Absolutely. So unfortunately, your GPA is kind of the one piece of your candidacy that at this point in time you have no control of. It is what it is. And so yes, if you have a lower than average GPA, it's certainly not impossible. We do want to understand, one, if there was something in particular that gave you trouble, if there's one semester specifically that is out of character with the others, we'd love to know why. If there's one class that you did particularly poorly in, but even beyond that, looking forward and being sort of proactive about demonstrating academic ability, Absolutely. So you mentioned the question asks about graduate level courses. So yes, this could be perhaps you already have a graduate degree. We will look at that as well. That's not factored into the GPA, but it will be a great indicator of your academic ability. But even if you have not pursued another degree, which is the majority of people, certainly, yes, taking courses is another great opportunity to do well and to demonstrate to the committee that you can do well, particularly if you're looking to increase your quantitative knowledge or give us more confidence in your quantitative abilities. We often suggest courses like financial accounting, statistics, microeconomics. Anytime you can learn a little bit about Excel, it will work in your favor. So some of those kind of courses will be beneficial not only to you if that's not part of your background, but also to the committee to better understand your abilities and capabilities. Really studying for the GRE or the GMAT and scoring well on both verbal and quantitative sections can also go a long way to give us some confidence in your current academic abilities. So similarly, on the discussion of GPAs, someone asks about a 10-point GPA. How is that compared to the standard 4-point scale here in the United States? And so our admissions committee is made of professionals who have been doing this for a really long time and have a really strong grasp about what different grading scales look like, and especially as you look internationally and how international universities tend to grade students. So we have a good grasp on that. And we'll also look at your transcript more deeply than that. So, we read your entire application very thoroughly, and that includes the transcript. So we'll look into the actual courses you took. Sometimes things are helpful. Some transcripts will show a class rank or kind of the average grade in the class. Sometimes those are able to help us determine what constitutes good, what constitutes excellent. So there are other ways for us to sort of determine the quality of your academic experience. But yes, please do not try to convert your GPA to a 4-point scale. Again, we've seen transcripts from all over the world. We look at them carefully. We look at their full context. So we will certainly be supportive and sensitive to various grading scales. All right. Do you prefer candidates with more traditional business backgrounds, or are more untraditional academic and career backgrounds also considered favorably? Absolutely. So we like to see both candidates, so those with traditional business backgrounds and those with non-traditional backgrounds as well. In addition to creating or sort of putting together a very strong and talented class, we also look to bring in a very diverse class, and that's something that we really pride ourselves on. And we look at diversity not just in a traditional gender, ethnicity, citizenship background, but as you mentioned, undergraduate studies, career background, career interests. So those all bring a lot to the table. It is up to you to help us understand if you are coming from a particularly non-traditional career. You might need to, help us understand what that looks like. what that career looks like, what sort of value you bring to your company, what you're able to contribute both currently at work and also what you will be able to contribute in an MBA program. So what skills from that non-traditional background are you going to be able to offer here at Tuck? And then, of course, you're also thinking about your goals after the MBA program and how your current work experience kind of fits into that. It's not uncommon for someone to come to Tuck with a non-traditional background and really be looking for, using this opportunity exactly because they don't have a previous business background in the traditional sense. So looking to couple some of the skills that they brought from their previous careers and personal, interpersonal skills with some of the hard skills like finance and accounting and operations and marketing in order to make a larger difference and contribute even more within that industry that they're so passionate about. Not sure if I can physically visit the campus before applying, but what would be the best way to learn more about campus life at Tuck? Great question. If you're not able to visit, that's okay. I would encourage you to reach out to current students, to use our Student Ambassador Program, which you can find on Tuck's website under clubs, and I believe sort of the cultural affinity section of clubs. There are a number of clubs here at Tuck. All of their leadership has contact information posted on the website. Our centers and initiatives here at Tuck, again, I mentioned they kind of revolve around industries of particular relevance to our world today, whether that's energy, whether that's healthcare. And those not only have faculty and staff affiliated with them, but there's also opportunities for students to get very heavily involved. The biggest of which perhaps is as a second-year fellow. And most of those centers and initiatives list their fellows. Sometimes they give a bio, and often they also provide their contact information. So utilize resources like that. Utilize Tuck Connections, which will ask you to fill out a profile, and then we'll match you based on various criteria. Use your own personal networks, use LinkedIn, and then also look for opportunities to meet with us in person when we are closer by, where you're currently located. So, like I said, the admissions team travels all across the world. We have students who are able to take us even further, and so look for events. The website is updated consistently with new events hosted by students, by admissions, sometimes by alums. Often alums will attend. So these are great opportunities to actually sit down and have a conversation and kind of get more of a vibe for what kind of people make up our community here at Tuck. Because again, like I said, there's so much to learn on the website and so much information to take in, but really understanding who are the people that you align with, who are the people that you want to be in a study group, up until 2 a.m. working on a project for the next day. Who are the people that you want to call on after graduation? So actually having these conversations on the phone, even via email, can go a long way to answer some of those questions for you. So this is a great question about social media, and says, specifically, it says, what is your initial reaction to an applicant not active on social media, including LinkedIn? Currently, Tuck we do not have a practice of looking at candidates' social media. I know that is not true across all programs. I'd say certainly it's less of an issue to be not active than to be active in a way that is not flattering to you. So be cautious of what you're posting. I mean, you guys, you know this by now. But the internet is forever, and be very, very careful about what you're putting out there about yourself. But as far as having to cultivate a particular online presence, that's something that we currently do not take into consideration as part of our evaluation process. Do you have any in-person meetings in Delhi? We do, not right now currently, I believe, but certainly keep your eyes peeled. And I should note too that not only do you need, you don't have to be continuously monitoring the website for new events, but we will send invitations to you via email for those events that are within your specific geographical area. Can impressive work experience and career growth overcome below average undergraduate performance, particularly if that work experience has propelled you into leadership and management roles in competitive environments? Absolutely. So that is, I mentioned earlier during the presentation that it really is a very holistic evaluation process. So certainly, while we couldn't overlook a horrible academic track record, but you are absolutely able to compensate for something that might be a little bit less than stellar with excellent work experience. Work experience brings a lot to the table, particularly as you mentioned, those of you who have had the opportunity to take on leadership and management roles. Yes, be able to articulate that, make sure you're choosing the right recommenders so that they can help you articulate that point. Letters of recommendation can go a long way to talking about work experience, so make sure you're choosing the right ones. But yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great way to help compensate for a below average undergraduate performance. Again, it could, depending on what that performance was, it could still be a hurdle, but it's not insurmountable. For those of you who have not had the opportunity to be in a leadership or management role, I would encourage you to look for these opportunities. It really is, one, a great personal growth opportunity, and also, it gives you more dimension as an MBA applicant. So whether that's managing people, maybe it's simply managing a project team or working on an intern program. Maybe it's something that you do outside of work even, as part of your volunteer activities or extracurricular activities. Apologies, I'm sifting through some of these questions. While I do, I'm going to launch another poll. Thank you for participating in the other one. How will I know which course will be better for me? I'm not sure exactly where the question asker meant to go with this. If you're looking at supplemental courses to enhance your quantitative profile, which I mentioned earlier in the Q&A, a lot of that depends on your personal, what's available to you personally. So what will fit into your schedule, what is available from a financial means standpoint. Do what works for you. And then as far as which one to take, well, if you have none of them in your background, of course, if you have a couple, I would take the ones that are not at all familiar to you. But yeah, I would say, they're all relatively, they're all very important, and they all have, their own place in the curriculum. So I'd say, take whichever one works for you, or take a couple if that's something that you have the opportunity to do. How will I know if you're kind of talking about MBA programs, which program, which school will be best for you? That just simply takes a lot of research and a lot of digging, a lot of knowing yourself. How, for instance, what does the curriculum look like? Tuck has a relatively extended core curriculum during the first year. Some programs have a very short core, some do not have a core at all. Tuck's entire second year is fully elective. Some programs require you to declare a major and kind of funnel your courses toward that particular subject matter. What is the teaching like? How are classes being taught? What kind of opportunities are available to you outside of the classroom? Tuck has a number of experiential opportunities, including Tuck Go, which does require all students to take a course outside of their home country sometime during their 2 years at Tuck. And hopefully you'll learn a lot more about that as the months progress. But what kind of opportunities are available to learn outside of the classroom? What does recruiting look like? But even beyond that, I would look very much at the people, at the community itself. Tuck, we're incredibly proud to have the most loyal, supportive alumni network out there, which is incredibly important, not just while you're here at Tuck and in pursuit of that first post-MBA job, but to have a network that will have your back, that will answer the phone, that will respond to emails now and for the rest of your professional life is invaluable. Tuck is known to have a very collaborative environment, people who are supportive and who want to help each other succeed. Other programs are quite competitive. So what works best for you personally? But some of these questions too will come out as you'll inevitably come up with more and more questions to ask yourself as you talk to people who attend various programs, and as you listen to webinars and participate in online events and attend events in person and visit campuses. You'll begin to sort of get a feel for what factors are most important for you in your professional and personal life. So it looks like the majority of you are looking to apply next year for the class of 2021, which is great, and even more specifically to apply in our earliest round. So I think that's great. Like I mentioned, I think it's really advantageous to one, decide that now in March when you have plenty of time to really cultivate a strong application, but also to make sure you are in front of the admissions committee as soon as you can. For those of you applying in a couple of weeks, good luck. I'm happy to answer this. I don't know how helpful this webinar was for you, but happy to answer some of the more nitty-gritty questions if you would like to do that offline. Prior to MBA, while exploring career goals, can freelancing experience be acceptable in applications? Yeah, so freelance experience is often the reality for some people, and some industries really lend themselves to that. Often that is the norm, and so yes, it is certainly possible to have a very strong candidacy, including your freelance experience. A couple things to note, I'd say. One is that make sure that your work experience, there's some level of consistency, or you're able to explain how you've sort of progressed from one job or one client to the next. So if freelancing has forced you to have a number of different gaps in your professional experience, be able to talk about why that was and what you did during that time. And I'd also say one thing that I think you do miss a little bit as a freelancer is the ability to collaborate and work with others. And I could be completely wrong about this in your particular situation, but being able to, again, that's something that we do like to see, how well you work with others. Do you collaborate? Do you have, Tuck's mission is to create wise leaders to better the world of business. And we think about some characteristics that comprise wise leadership, particularly being empathy and confident humility. And sometimes without those team experiences and without the ability to work with others and work across differences, it's harder for us to judge or to determine and evaluate empathy. Of course, it's not the only way to do this, but just something to think about as you take on projects, as you talk about your work experience. Perhaps there's something you'd like to highlight within your life outside of work that makes you particularly excited about working with others and collaborating and solving problems in different ways. Someone similarly asks about entrepreneurship experience. And no, I think that's excellent. Again, it kind of goes back to the sometimes, the diversity of experience that we look for in the class. And I think entrepreneurs can offer a lot of very interesting, they've often learned a lot about themselves, about running a business, about starting a business. Entrepreneurship often comes with failures as well as successes. So absolutely, there's a lot to learn as an entrepreneur and a lot to bring to the table. And it's something that, particularly if you're able to, again, clearly articulate what the organization is, what your company is, how well you've done, being very honest about that, of course. I think entrepreneurship experience is great. All right. Kind of a logistical question. Someone would like to visit, but currently we are, so if you're looking to visit in the immediate future, we do not have any official visits available right now. Our students are away on their March break. The large majority of them are traveling internationally as part of Tuck Go opportunities or otherwise. So we do not have visits happening right now. If you'd like to come in spring term for a visit or as an April applicant for a visit and interview, you're absolutely welcome to do that. And yes, Tuck's website should have under the admissions menu, will have an opportunity. I think it says Visit Tuck, and if you continue clicking, you'll find an opportunity to register. If nothing is posted right now, or if the dates you're looking for is not posted, do stay tuned. I will say we do not offer the same visit schedule lineup. Typically we do Monday through Friday we have visits available, except during the summer. Do all of your accepted applicants have some sort of leadership experience? No. So some might, just show an aptitude for it. We'd like to see you. I'd say no from an official sort of leadership, management, supervisory capacity. I'd say all of our applicants or all of our students have some sort of have taken, all is a strong word. Most have taken some sort of initiative, have had the opportunity to sort of step up and lead through thought leadership, through sort of being proactive, through showing some sort of leadership characteristics and qualities, even if it wasn't necessarily that they are managing people directly. So the answer is no, but I bet you have more than you think. So someone asks about acceptance rates in early action and the benefit of early action, and I'd say yes. So acceptance rates are highly dependent on the pool itself. So there is no predetermined number of offers that we're planning to make in any of the rounds, nor are we holding aside a particular quota for later rounds during early action. That said, we are, like I said, there are more quote unquote seats available in the class early on. We're able to be a little bit more generous. We're able to be a little, perhaps take a chance we might not be able to later on. So it does get increasingly competitive. That said, I mean, it's not, aim for the earliest application in which you can submit, or earliest round in which you can submit a strong application. If that doesn't happen to pan out, don't panic. We just admitted a really great group last Friday who applied in January. So it's not over, but yes, there are admissions advantages to applying earlier rather than later. And you get to find out in December, which is always great to know a little bit earlier and be able to start making plans. All right, and I'll apologize right now. There are several questions, and I definitely won't be able to get to them all. So if yours isn't answered, my apologies, and there's lots of time to interact with us and learn more about the application process. If a candidate is torn between two career paths, how would you suggest they select one over the other? Exploration. So I would learn as much as I could about each of those career paths, talk to people who are currently working within those industries or within that function. And even then, if you are still a bit torn, that's okay. My guess is that there will be one that you feel at least slightly more excited about. And so perhaps that's what you want to have as your, front runner, for lack of a better word. But then, of course, once you do get to the program, if it truly is just two paths that you're excited about or that you see yourself wanting to pursue, then there is time probably for some exploration into both of those. You're never sort of you do not have to end up pursuing what you told us in your application, though it will give you kind of that guide, that roadmap when you're incredibly busy at the program. What if you want to apply in the early round but would rather wait to be invited to interview to see if there's mutual interest? Well, you certainly could do that. We do invite people in the early round to interview. Typically, it comes later, of course, because we want to give you plenty of time to initiate that on your own within your own schedule if possible. But it's possible that you could be invited within any round, absolutely. I would encourage you, so many people, like I said, this is a holistic process. If you have the means and the opportunity to come and visit, to learn more about Tuck, to tell Tuck more about you, that is likely to make your application stronger. So where you might have been on the cusp, just based on sort of the paper components of the application, the interview might be a very compelling addition to that. So I think it's a very valuable additional data point and works in your favor as well. And it also gives you the opportunity to get to know Tuck. So it's not only for us to sort of demonstrate interest to you, but sometimes it can demonstrate interest to us as well, though certainly not required. All right. Well, it's 12:59, so I'm going to wrap things up. But I very much look forward to meeting you or chatting further via email or in other online events, or perhaps in person at an event near you or here on campus. Most of you have some busy months ahead of you, and I have no doubt that you'll be able to navigate it well. But do use these questions as a bit of a guide map. Continue checking in with yourself, continue learning about yourself, about this process, and you'll be in good shape. Other than that, thank you so much for joining me today, and good luck as you move forward.